Alright, what is up my homies, and welcome to Day 2 Grey Gaming. Today on another episode of Settlement Builds for Noobs, we are taking a look at Sunshine Tidings Co-op. Sunshine Tidings Co-op has a little bit of something for everyone, but not a lot of anything for anyone. That's why I figured I would take a stab at seeing what we can accomplish here at the Sunshine Tidings Co-op. There's a lot of level ground, but a lot of brush that's built over it. There's a lot of hills and things that you have to work around. There's a lot of rocks and boulders. And of course, there are a number of cabins and warehouses which cannot be scrapped. So this is a bit of a challenge to work around all of these different things. And the areas that we do have that are not that challenging are pretty small to work with. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and see what I was able to accomplish at the Sunshine Tidings Co-op. All right, so here we are at the crack of dawn at Sunshine Tidings Co-op. And here we have a Wild West style build site. So I wanted this to be something that looks a little bit more Western in theme. I've been playing around with Western style buildings for quite a while, so now we're just kind of jumping full tilt into it. So the settlers are just getting up to head to work, and let's go ahead and see what all we have here at Sunshine Tidings Co-op. So as we enter into the settlement, the first thing that we get to see is the Roadhouse Saloon. So let's go ahead and check that out. All right, so here we are in the Roadhouse Saloon, and it's pretty standard fare for a lot of my saloon, tavern, restaurant, whatever you want to call them. So just a little bit of signage around, a little bit of mood lighting, which I don't normally put in the cafes, usually casino type areas. However, for here, I felt that it would work out pretty well. So we do have our tier 3 bar and various things that you would want in a restaurant, such as a refrigerator, a garbage can, and a stove, as well as a sink. I believe I remembered a sink. Yeah, the sink's right back here. We also have our cash register and a radio if we want to listen to some Diamond City radio. We also have our row of drink dispensers, as is pretty usual. We have our Nuka-Cola mixer. We have our Vault 88 mixing machine. We also have an ice dispenser, a drink dispenser, and the Sicilian espresso machine, which I've also started throwing it. Whoa, get out of my way. All right, so various different drink machines. We also have some tables and some booth seating as well, so you have quite a bit of variety for how you want to dine at this settlement. We also threw in some of these oil lamps for a little bit of ambiance and to kind of add a little bit more light than what the cycling lights give us. So we also have a pair of vending machines, so we can stock these with Vim or Nuka-Cola as we wish. And taking a step up here to the casino floor, we have some Vault 88 slot machines. We have the Hoop Shot, we have the Atomic Rollers, and Red Menace. And because I was able to use the barn roofing and we used vaulted roofing, I was actually able to fit the Nuka Zapper in here. So the Nuka Zapper race is something that I have not built at any of my other settlements, mostly because it is too dang big. So we actually have that here where we don't normally have it at some of our other sites. Otherwise, we just have our Juke and Jive. We've got some card tables. We've got some bars. We have a dance floor. So everything that you normally see at a lot of my other casino floors or casino areas, arcades, whatever I usually call them, is all here. I didn't go with the Creation Club arcade cabinets, mostly just because I was running out of room. And the choice was either to set up arcade cabinets or go with a dance floor. I figured this was a little bit more energy efficient and a little more vanilla. So there's very little Creation Club content here in this build site, so it's fairly easy to replicate. Okay, we just have a few tables and parasols out here on the main deck, and so you can sit out here, look out over the Commonwealth, and have a decent time. So I'm pretty thrilled with how that turned out. Normally I don't like the barn when I'm doing multi-storied structures just because of how tall they end up being, but overall, the Roadhouse Saloon ended up quite good, in my opinion. All right. So in here, we have our caravan trading post. So all of the Bunker Hill traders will stop here. And we also have this building, which is kind of our stable area. So we do have some dog houses. We have a pit bull, and I think there's a golden retriever running around somewhere. We also have a couple Brahmin, which glitch out a little bit because there's not a lot of room. But ordinarily, one just sits at the bathtub drinking while one sits at the food trough eating. So when they're not standing on each other's backs, they are usually just chilling out, not looking too bad. There's also some kitty bowls stashed around, so we have a couple kitties trapped in a corner back there. So up here, we have our cabin rental, stables, and storage. So each of the cabins, instead of trying to use them for settler housing, I decided instead to make this kind of a stopping post, where this location is really your last stop before you start to head west through Massachusetts, like Brad Burton at Nuka World, etc. So anyone who is on their way away from the coast, this is a nice way station for them to get a nice roof over their head, to have a nice comfortable bed to sleep in, etc. So I really thought that a cabin rental would work perfectly for that setup. So that's exactly what I did. There's also stables. So around here, there is a place for traveling caravans to keep their Brahmin while they're here. And there's also storage. So just like you normally see in other games, there's kind of a stash area where you can pay to have your stuff stowed, or you just get to use it. So here we have our cabin rental office, which is also where you pay to have your animals put up for the night. And you can also pay to have some of your belongings stored for safekeeping. Go away. Don't want to talk to you. All right. And so I like how that turned out. So in here in one of our cabins, pretty much all of these are going to be variations of the same basic formula, but each one is a little bit different. So there's a single bed, there's a chair, there's a couch and a coffee table, and something to store your belongings in. So in this case, we just have some workshop drawers and shelving for you to keep your stuff in instead of a dresser. And each of the cabins is labeled. So we have cabins A through E. So each of the ones that are still intact enough to use for guest housing are here. Some of them don't have doors, and doors don't snap into their gateway. So we had to renovate some of them. So here we just kind of have some sheet metal doors stacked in. So it kind of gives that these things are falling apart. So why would you waste resources on putting in a really nice fancy door when the rest of the cabin's just going to fall down? So it's kind of, we cobbled together and renovated these just enough to start making money off of them. So here's another cabin. We just have a hospital bed, a drawer or a desk for you to keep your stuff in, and a couple chairs for you to sit down, get comfy, and take a load off. So that's cabin B. We'll go around the rest of the perimeter, and then we'll go back in through the center. So up here, we have the main fort. So just like most Wild West style settlements, there was always a fort, a main area where during some sort of attack, you could bring all of the women and children in, or everyone can just fall back to a nice safe point. So here we have our fort, which is also serving as our main artillery battery. So this fort is only accessible from one powered door, which you can cut power to and lock the place down. Since this is just temporary, or there's not a lot of room in here, it's really just get your butts in here and stay safe. We also have this area. It was something I struggled with. I couldn't quite fill this in. There's just a little bit too much ground underneath for you to place one more wall. So there is a floating structure, which I have got some feedback on that a lot of people don't tend to like my floating concrete structures, but it's about the best that I could do. Sorry, guys. I'll do better. I swear. All right. And then stepping up here, we have our main artillery battery, and it is fully manned. It's just one of them is probably hanging out in the saloon. They usually take turns going and getting themselves a drink. They are standing out here in the hot sun all day. So we do have two guns, which are fully manned, and both of them are pointing toward the western Commonwealth or towards Bradburton. So they are able to look out past here and see pretty much everything. They do have a nice bird's eye view of the Commonwealth from up here. They are a little obstructed from Bradburton, but it does give them a pretty decent view overall. We do have 3 suits of T60 power armor stored here. So there's only 8 people living here, and we actually only have a capacity for 8 unless we start putting people up in those visitor cabins. So these 3 suits of power armor for 8 settlers is a pretty decent ratio in my opinion. All right, continuing around to cabin C. We've got another setup here where we just have kind of a dingy old bed. We have a dresser where all of the drawers are kind of off its tracks, but you can still keep your clothes in. This cabin actually comes with a fireplace, though I personally would not feel safe using that fireplace without a door. It also has a couple chairs and a coffee table, and that's about it. So this cabin is not complete. It's boarded up, and oh, I forgot to drag a ghoul away. There are quite a few ghouls who just spawn in and don't ever disappear. You can get rid of them with console commands, but if you're playing on an Xbox or a PlayStation, you can just pick them up and drag them somewhere else where they're not really visible. But yeah, this cabin is boarded up in the front and the back is missing. And the borders of the workshop are right here. So you're really not going to be able to make any use of this particular cabin. It's just defended and left to its own devices to collapse eventually. So we do have some demon possessed weight sets, and they're just kind of sitting here on this open platform. I didn't bother enclosing it like I normally do. This is really just a place because my old build here was a tower build. I had some exercise equipment still here, so I just built a platform and threw it out to improve settler happiness. So here at cabin D is another one where we had to kind of renovate to get a doorway in here. And it's the same basic story, a dingy bed. We have a wooden filing cabinet in place of a dresser. We also have this torn up chair, a table without any chairs, and we have this chair as well. So each of these is pretty decent accommodation by Wasteland standards, but definitely not what I normally allocate to each of my settlers. So here we have the latrine and showers. So anyone who knows my usual bathhouse probably knows what's going to be in here. Green doors are usually for bathrooms. And so here we just have a toilet and a sink. So do your business, wash your hands. At least it's not an outhouse like there would actually be in the Wild West. And then here in the back, we have some changing rooms. So a locker to keep your stuff safe and a shower. And these are decontamination arches by design. So if you use them, it'll take care of any rads that you have. So everyone at this settlement has the ability to take a shower, even visitors. And everybody can do their business in relative non-stinkiness compared to an outhouse. All right. And the final cabin, cabin E, which is once again just kind of ratty old boards and a barn door. And we have a picnic table in here, so you can actually use the table. Even though some of those boards are looking pretty sunken, I probably wouldn't trust it. But there's also a bed, a foot locker to keep your stuff in, and a stuffed chair that actually looks pretty comfy. And so that is the last of the cabins that can be rented by people traveling. Now, what Wild West settlement would be complete without a water tower? So this is a concrete tower. I tried to limit concrete as much as possible. I did use it for the fort area, just because that's going to be much more defensible than just the barn set that I used for just about everything else. But there really isn't anything that has rounded walls except for the concrete. So building the water tower out of the concrete allowed for that nice water tower aesthetic. And so I was actually able to place the water pump underneath it and put some electrical conduit, and I didn't have to glitch or anything. I mean, you do, but I didn't have to rug glitch or anything. I was just able to place this conduit right through this upper tank. So we can actually say that when we activate our water pump, we're pumping up into the water tower. So it's rather nice how that turned out. I'm pretty thankful that I was able to get that to work. So it has a water tower. This little shed I've done nothing with. This I just let sit empty. And so that's it for the perimeter. And we've already taken a look at the Roadhouse Inn. So let's go ahead and take a look here. So we do have the main machine and tool shed. So all of the doors work here. I did manage to get a door to replace the sunken one. So this particular shed has two side doors, which are both missing. And one of the 4 large shop doors is also sitting on the ground. I wish you could scrap that, but you can't. But I was able, just barely, to sink in a additional shop door. So even though they don't completely line up, there's a little bit of an air gap, it does actually look fairly decent. And I could throw in another warehouse door on this side and actually fill it in, but I didn't want to have 5 doors. For some reason, that asymmetry just doesn't bug me as much as having an odd number of doors. There's also these, which, just like the cabins, I was able to get a warehouse wall just close enough to the edge that it's not conspicuous, and then you can snap regular doors into those warehouse doorways that I placed. Other than that, this tool shed is home to the warehouse, home to the workshop, and it's also home to our 1 fusion generator, so we didn't need 2. Most of our turrets at this location are ballistic turrets, so we don't have as much power demand as some of our larger settlements. And we also have the rest of our normal workshop fare. We have our chemistry station, power armor, weapons, and armor, all here in this one spot. The stove and the Nuka-Cola mixer crafting stations are both located in the Roadhouse. All right, so here we are at the residence halls. So each of these is slightly different, but they're all the same basic formula. So we have 4 of these 2-person accommodations in this large square structure, and each person, or there's 2 people to a room. There's 4 rooms in this structure. And so since this is a settlement of 8 people, including our provisioner, then everyone who works at this settlement lives in this one building. And so this is a little bit more thought than I put into most of my settler accommodations. Usually, you guys know, I just throw in a Vault 88 bed and a Vault 88 trunk and call it a day. Here, I threw in this couch, which is Creation Club content, but there's a red one that comes with Vault 88 that's almost identical. There's also a coffee table. Whoa, something happened there. I'm going to guess that a painting that I intended for the room behind this went through the wall. I think that's what happened. But anyway, some potted plants, a rug, which is also Creation Club, but there are rugs in vanilla game that you can use, and a garbage can. So pretty much everything you would want in a home, especially for post-apocalypse standards, is here. So all of these rooms are pretty much identical. They have slight variations, like they have different rugs, different paintings on the walls, but otherwise the furniture is all identical. So moving around here to the back side, we have our other 2 rooms. And so once again, looks pretty identical. And so that is our main residence hall. Of course, we have a greenhouse. I didn't go as fancy as I normally do by putting in sprinkler systems and grow lights. I just went with a traditional greenhouse. And so we do grow everything here. So we've got some razor grain, melons, gourds, carrots, mute fruit, potatoes, and I don't know if I said corn, but if I didn't, corn. So we do grow everything. My usual reasons, as always. You don't have to worry about a single staple crop getting wiped out by some sort of disease that only affects that one plant, or some sort of bug that only likes to eat that one plant. You have dietary diversity, so you don't have to worry as much about nutritional deficiencies. So all of that is a good reason to have everything. Not to mention things like melons can be used for crafting certain flavors of Vim. Carrots can be used for cooking certain meat items. Mute fruit, potatoes, and corn all come together to create vegetable starch. And razor grain can be used, most often I use razor grain for Brahmin traps so that I can attract more Brahmin to certain settlement sites. So this is our greenhouse. Nothing fancy by my usual standards, but perfectly in line with what you would expect from a Wild West themed settlement. And I'm going to take care of this fog. And then the last structure that we have not yet looked at is the mayor's home. So there is a player home at this site, which usually my smaller settlements don't really have player homes. Usually I reserve those for my major ones. But since this is kind of a stopping off point if you're on your way to Nuka World, if you are doing a survival playthrough, having a player home at this site actually makes a decent amount of sense as a nice safe place to spend the night, sleep everything off, and get ready for your trip to Nuka World. This is actually a pretty decent location to put one. So I put a mayor's home in here. And so this is rather interesting. It's my first mayor or player home that I've done out of the barn build set. And I actually really love how this turned out, having these vaulted roofs with these upper windows that lets a lot of light in. We also have some various lights around to provide more. Otherwise, the inside really doesn't look all that different from what I normally put in a player home. So there is a table so I can eat here in privacy. There is a wraparound desk for me to disassemble weapons or write letters on. There are various potted plants around for livening things up. There is that same blue couch and coffee table that I put in all the rest of the residences. And I like nautical theme for most of my stuff. So we've got the USS Constitution sitting here, which is Creation Club. But the rest of these paintings around the wall are vanilla. We do have the player bedroom. So we've got our Vault 88 trunk. We have a Creation Club bed, but it's the same dimensions as the Vault 88 bed. I just like it because it uses a blue blanket instead of a gray one. We do have a floor safe for storing some of our stuff in. We also have a dresser, a locker, so you can kind of separate out what you're trying to dump. So if you're trying to dump stuff that would fit in a floor safe, dump in a bunch of clothes, a bunch of weapons, etc. So you can separate things out instead of dumping them all and then having to sort through them. On this side, we have our own private decon chamber / shower. So we can take a shower here without having to go down to the main bathhouse. And we have our own personal bathroom. So sink, toilet, do our business on our own. So these are all enclosed. They do have roofs. So that actually creates a fair amount of loft space. So you can actually throw, if you wanted, some foot lockers, some steamer trunks up here if you want. So then that way you can see that this actually gives you additional storage space in addition to just having these nice open vaulted ceilings. So I really liked how this turned out. This was not a structure that I had even planned. I just started building and went. So I really, really am thrilled with how this turned out. Not my normal aesthetic style, but definitely something that I'm glad that I undertook. And that is it. That is the whole settlement. I really love how everything turned out. It's much smaller than usual, so you don't have my normal accommodations like our full general store with the 4 different traders. We don't have a hospital or anything like that. It's really just what you would expect to find at a way station somewhere along a major roadway. So we do have things like cabin rentals. We have things like a tavern, a place for you to get some food, get drunk, whatever you want, maybe do a little bit of gambling. We do have a place for us to grow food. We do have a safety fallback point in case we want. There's the obligatory water tower and other things that you would expect to find. I absolutely love how this settlement turned out. Not my normal build style, but compared to the normal scrappy aesthetic that I have been experimenting with stepping outside my comfort zone, this turned out way better. And just throwing in all of that Western wear from Nuka World, from Dry Rock Gulch, really goes on to cement the ambiance of this site. So I absolutely love how this turned out. Is there anything that we missed? Is there anything that you would have done differently at this site? Definitely let us know in the comments below. With all that out of the way, I think I'm ready to sign off. So until next time, stay safe, and I'll see you all here next time on Gray Gaming.